Good morning and namaste to all. Let's start our Gita class, Sunday's Gita class with Gita Dhyanam. Om Parthaye Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayan Swayam Vyasen Grathitam Puran Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Ritvarshinim Bhagavati Mashtadashadhyayane Am Tvam Anusandhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshinim नमो अस्तुते व्यास विशाल बुद्धे फुल अरविंद आयत पत्र नेत्र येन तव्या भारत तैल पूर्णः प्रज्वलितो ज्ञानमय प्रदीपः प्रपन्न पारिजाताय तोत्र वेत्र एकपानये ज्ञान मुद्राय कृष्णाय गीता अमृत दुहे नमः सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोगदा गोपाल नंदना पार्थो वत्सा सुधीर भोगता दुग्धम गीता अमृतम महत वसुदेव सुतम देवम कंस चानूरमर्दनम देवकी परमानंदम कृष्णम वंदे जगद्गुरुम भीष्म द्रोण तटा जयद्रथ जला गांधार नीलोत्पला शल्य ग्राहवती कृपेन वाहने कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थाम विकर्ण घोरमक्रा दुर्योधन अवर्तने सोतीर्णा खलु पांडवै रन्नदी के वर्तका केशवा पाराशरे वत्सरोजमलं गीता अर्थगंधोटकम नानाख्यानक केसरम हरि कथा संबोधन अबोधितम लोके सज्जन षटपदय रह पे पिये मानम मुदा भूयाद भारत पंकजम कलिमल प्रध्वंसे न श्रेयसे मूकम करोति वाचालम पंगुम लंघ्यते गिरिम यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानंद माधवम यम ब्रह्म वरुण इंद्र रुद्र मर्ता स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्ये स्तवे वेदै साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदै गायन्ति यम सामगा ध्यानवस्थे तद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यम योगिनो यस्यन्तं न विदुः असुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः. Bhagavad Gita. We started second chapter, Sankhya Yoga. Okay, and the name of the first chapter was Vishad Yoga. So second is Sankhya Yoga. And how many chapters altogether? 18. 18. Okay, and who wrote it? Rishi Vyasa. And the conversation is between Lord Krishna and Arjuna, but narrated by Sanjay to the blind king Dhritarashtra. So we should know this. Okay, we know this. When was it written? After the war. And this is part of our epic Mahabharata. Okay, so we should know this is a very basic knowledge we should have, so that we can tell our children, grandchildren, anybody else, and for ourselves also. Deep knowledge, how to live. See, basically, if somebody asks you why to study Bhagavad Gita, to learn how to live as a human being. How to live. How to increase our vivek, the discrimination. Vivek. Discrimination means discriminate. How to discriminate between the real and unreal, between the true and untrue, between the temporary and the permanent. And this is what we see Arjuna is. He is showing this urgency where we ended our class last time. Verse number 8, chapter number 2. He says, you are my guru. You tell me. I am full of sorrow right now. See, look at his words. Nahi prapashyami mam apnudiyat yat shokam uchoshnam indriyanam. He says, I do not see that it would remove this sorrow that burns up my senses. Ushoshnam indriyanam. Even if I should attain prosperous and unrivaled dominion on earth. So what is he saying? That no matter how much kind of a material wealth I have, what kind of a name and fame I have, It's not going to remove my sorrow. And where is this sorrow coming from? This sorrow really means he wants to be liberated. He wants to know himself. He wants to know what he is a part of the Brahman. So this Arjun, who's feeling this vairagya over here, is pretty evident in these words. So burning aspiration you can see in these words. He wants to liberate himself. Because if we look at our sorrow, why are we sorrowful? Body is not right. Money is not enough. Nobody respects me. My kids are not with me. All those transient things, and we think we are sorrow. Over here, he is declaring that even the dominion over the earth, even the lordship over the gods, Suranam, see, avapye bhumo aspatanam, riddham rajyam Suranam, even the heavenly abode is not going to let go of my sorrow. It's a pretty deep verse. That's why he has accepted Lord Krishna as his guru. And he is pouring his heart out. That is one place where we can pour our heart out if we are lucky enough to have a guru. Everybody doesn't have a guru. Either they don't find a guru, or even if they find it, they really cannot surrender. But Arjun is fortunate enough to have found a guru, at the same time has that kind of a state of mind where he can surrender completely. We got to find that Arjun in us. Now Sanjay is saying, because Arjun stopped after talking this, telling this to Lord Krishna. Let's start our class with the verse number 9. Because you will see that rest of the Bhagavad Gita, starting from this verse number, not 9, but 9 and 10, Sanjay is speaking, but after that, Lord Krishna is giving Arjun the Upadesh so that he can come out of this delusion also, the sorrowful state also. Okay, so that's why they say that with verse 11, Bhagavad Gita, the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita starts, when Lord Krishna starts to speak. But let's see what Sanjay is saying to Dhritarashtra after looking at Arjun, after hearing out Arjun. He says, Eva muktavaha rishikesham gudakesha paramtapa na yotasya iti govindam uktavaha tu shanim babhuvaha. Eva means thus, uktava, spoken, rishikesham, master of the senses, Gudakesh, conqueror of sleep, Paramatapa, destroyer of the enemies. No yotasya, I will not fight. Iti means thus, Govindam, to Govinda. Uktava, having said, tu shanim, silent. Babhuv, became, ha means certainly. Having spoken thus to Rishikesh. So Rishikesh is for Lord Krishna. Gudakesh, that is for Arjun. And Paramatap is also Arjun, destroyer of the enemies. That he was that kind of a warrior. And Sanjay is telling this to Dhritarashtra. Look at the courage of Sanjay. He doesn't mind telling the truth. Said to Govinda, I will not fight, and became silent. Okay. So Sanjay is telling to Dhritarashtra that Arjun said, after saying all that, at the end he said, I am not going to fight. And tu shanim, he became silent. So you can see that this verse 9 and 10, they are like a running commentary by Sanjay to Dhritarashtra. Key word in this verse is tushnim. Tushnim. Tushnim is kind of a bhav, a mental attitude. When we are stunned silence, total blocked out from the feelings, or when we have an impact of a sudden news, tragic news, this condition of tu shanim bhav comes. Okay. So this is what, so you can see that Sanjay not only can hear and see, but he can feel the state of mind of Arjun too. So because tu shanim bhav is a inner feeling. So yogis can see that. The yogic power is such, so subtle, so strong. Tam uvach rishikesh prahasan iv bharat sainyo ubhyo madhye vishidantam idam vacha. Tam means to him, uvach spoke, rishikesh, that's Lord Krishna, prahasan, smiling. Iv means as it were, or as if, Bharat. So over here, this Bharat word is for Dhritarashtra. It's a Bharat dynasty. Okay, so sometimes Bharat word is for Arjuna also because he belongs to the same family. But over here, Sanjay is talking to Dhritarashtra. So this Bharat is for Dhritarashtra. Sainyo of the armies, Ubhyo of both, Madhye in the middle, Vishidantam, grief stricken, despondent. Idam means this, Vacha means words. To him who was despondent, in the midst of the two armies, Rishikesh, as if smiling, O Bharat, spoke these words. So Arjun was stunned, he was confused, totally surrendered to Lord Krishna. And Lord Krishna smiling. This smile is, he's not smiling at Arjuna, he is smiling because he understands what's really happening. He's sure about everything. See, when you are sure, when you are confident, you smile. Arjuna over here, he's shaken up. His ego has taken over, but Lord Krishna is completely in control. That's what smiling means over here. Because with our incomplete understanding, we find faults in the situations wherever we are in. Then we cannot smile. We are disturbed. We complain. We grumble. And we hold others responsible for those situations. We constantly think we are miserable because of somebody else. But enlightened people, they remember that this world is created by God. We have not created it, God created it. And it's perfect, whatever it is. Because from our egoistic opinion, it is not. We find faults. But they think that, yeah, it's God's play. It's perfect. Both good and bad situations come to us because of some divine purpose. Because there's always something either we have to learn or we have to go through this situation to benefit for ourselves and for others. So that's why Lord Krishna is Prahasan. Completely control of the whole situation. where Arjun is not. Okay. So now what does Lord Krishna say? Because starting with this verse, he initiates his discourse with a very dramatic opening. The statement is almost like a very thundering statement over here. He says, Ashocyan anavshochahatvam pragyavadan cha bhashase gatasoon agatasoonana nanu shochanti panditaha. Ashocyan, those who should not be grieved for. Anavshocha, have grieved. Tvam means you. Pragyavadan, words of wisdom. Cha means and. Bhashase, spoken. Gatasoon, the dead. Agatasoon, the living. Nanu shochanti, grieve not or never lament. Pandita, the wise. He says, Lord Krishna is saying, you have grieved for those that should not be grieved for. Yet you speak words of wisdom. The wise grieve neither for the living nor for the dead. As I said earlier, from this verse onwards, the pure philosophy of Gita starts. Lord Krishna knew Arjun's mental, his torturing inside him. He knew from the symptoms also, and he knew that disease is pretty deep. So Lord Krishna wants to remove the very source of Arjun's delusion. Not just patch it up, not just put a bandage on it. Misapprehension of the reality can take place when there's a non-apprehension of the reality. So they go hand in hand. So that's why Arjun is this kind of a state of mind. He's misapprehending because he doesn't know. And this is the cream of all the Upanishads. When you study all the Upanishads, you will see that they bring it out in us, that what is the reality? Know the reality, experience the reality, so that you are not misapprehended. So that's why Lord Krishna is starting his instructions to Arjuna with a direct discourse upon the eternal reality. And what is this eternal reality? You are mourning for them who should not be mourned for. Because who were those people he was mourning for? Basically, Bhisham Pitama and Dronacharya, those elders. Because Bhisham Pitama and Dronacharya, they are not merely the body. They are only functioning through the body. So by this statement, Lord Krishna has indicated to Arjun a greater self than the ego in every embodiment. We are not our bodies either. At every level of our personality, we view life and come to our own conclusion over things. We have a physical estimate of the world outside from our body level. And apart and quite distinct from this physical is the emotional picture of our life. That is a mental level. Then there's an intellectual concept of life from the level of our intellect. So the physical, the mental, the intellectual. Intellectual is different, higher than the mental. Mental is higher than the physical. But Lord Krishna is taking Arjuna to the higher than that, which is called spiritual level. So Lord Krishna is advising Arjun to renounce his physical estimate, renounce his emotional and attitude, renounce his intellectual estimate also. As a guru, that's what he's teaching him. Whom you are considering your grandfather, your teacher, you're looking at it a physical point of view, the physical estimate of it. But he says, re-evaluate the situation from the spiritual estimate. This great and transcendental truth is okay. All of a sudden, Lord Krishna is in the opening statement telling Arjuna, because he wanted to give a stunning effect of this sudden blast. He wanted Arjuna to listen to him. But then to add some extra physical strength to his statement, he says, you speak words of wisdom, but wise people don't do this. See, look at these words. The wise grieve neither for the living nor for the dead, yet you speak words of the wisdom. If you look at all those arguments which Arjuna was giving in the last chapter or even in this chapter, they are from Artha Shastra. Vedic literature is so big. There is I told you, Kam Shastra also, Artha Shastra also, Dharma Shastra also. And what is a Dharma Shastra? Dharma Shastra is the Upanishads. So he's acting like a wise person that he knows all the scriptures, but he is basically giving his opinions based upon the Artha Shastra. Dharma Shastra is above the Artha Shastra. You are wise when you are talking from the Dharma Shastra. So Pragya Vadan, words of wisdom. So the just suggestion over here is that Arjun's hesitation to do his duty, to fight against his elders in the war where he is standing right now. And he is hesitating because he is misunderstanding, misinterpreting the Dharma Shastra. The Hindu religion or Vedic religion, it's the same thing. The rishis, all the rishis, they have said, or even the today's scholars, they will tell you, downfall of this wisdom is because people have not understood the difference between the scriptures. They have not studied. They don't study, they don't want to understand, and they don't want to live this. It's not that philosophy is not great. Philosophy is great, but we don't know how to, what is this philosophy? How to live this philosophy? And this is what we are seeing in Arjuna right now here in the beginning of this war. So that's why Lord Krishna is saying that you talk like a wise person. You think you are wise, but your actions don't show that. Because a wise person never feels miserable, never mourn either for the things which are or for things which are no more. Because a wise person understands that the outer world of objects is essentially finite. That's the wisdom. Things in it must perish and be born again. If a child cries that sun has gone, There's no sun anymore. It's dark. What will the adults say? It's night time. In the morning, sun will come up again. Okay. So the whole thing is finite. This body is finite. So that's why we got to remember the physical level, emotional level, intellectual level, then ultimately we are here to attain the spiritual level. So continuity of change is the nature of finitude. And it is this change that we understand as death. Death is only for the body. Death is only for the finite. To mourn for change is not to understand the nature of the finitude. And it is as unintelligent as to complain of light in the sun. So wise people understand this. They do not mourn for things that exist, nor for things that depart. And we all need to become wise. The sooner we become wise, the sooner we will get rid of the sorrow. Okay? Wise is never sorrowful. And why do they deserve no grief? Because they are eternal. And how? That's what Lord Krishna says in the next verse. Na tu eva ham jatu na asam na tvam na em janadhipa na cha ev na bhavishyama sarvevyam ata parama. Beautiful verse. This is according to the Vedic tradition. Whenever divine knowledge is imparted, it usually begins with the knowledge of the self. And that's what Lord Krishna is following. With this immaculate logic, he is establishing the principle of transmigration of the soul from lifetime to lifetime. Okay. So he's not starting from the bottom, he's starting from the top. I always told you that this kind of a knowledge is a descending knowledge. You start from the top. Material knowledge is ascending knowledge. You start from the bottom. So na means not, tu means indeed. Ev means also. Aham, I. Jatu, at any time. Again, na means not, asam, was. Na means not, tvam, you. Na ime, not these. Janadhipa, rulers of men. Na not, cha, and ev also. Again, na not, bhavishyamaha, shall be. Sarve, all. Vayam, we. See, aham is I, vayam means we. Ataha, from this. That means from this time. Param, after. It is not that at any time in the past, indeed, was I not, nor were you. Nor these rulers of men, nor verily shall we ever cease to be hereafter. So in simple terms, he is telling us the continuity of the existence of the soul very emphatically. And he's talking about himself also, Arjuna also, and other people also. So that means everybody, everything. So this is a philosophical thinking we should use as guidance for our intellect to apprehend the continuity from the past through the present to the endless future. This is a Vedic philosophy, a Hindu philosophy, that has given us the most satisfactory answer to a lot of questions. You can call it a law of karma, a theory of reincarnation, whatever it is. This is the fundamental. All of us were We are, we will be, we are all eternal. We are not talking about the body, the physical body. We are not talking about the emotions. We are not talking about the intellect. That keeps on changing. We are talking about the soul, the Atma, which is part of God. So that's why I said he is starting his discourse from a very top level. And this reincarnation theory is not a mere dream of the philosophers. It is logical. And we must accept the idea of the continuity of the embodied souls to really understand this. And Arjun at this point, it's quite evident that he cannot grasp it. Lord Krishna must have seen his questioning eyes about this idea, because otherwise Gita would have stopped right here. But Arjun just must have thought that, what are you talking about? So that's why the following verses, we can see that Lord Krishna is further explaining. Because Arjun must be asking with his eyes that why no grief if I kill them? And if they are eternal, how they are eternal? I really don't understand. So now Lord Krishna just comes little a notch down, from the highest to the little notch down, to explain it to him. He says, Dehina asmin yatha dehe kaumaram yovnam jara de tatha deha antra praptihi dhira tatra na muhyati. Dehina, of the embodied, the soul. Asmin, in this, yatha, as, dehe, in body. Kaumaram, childhood. Kaumar avastha, childhood. Yavanam, youth. Jara, old age. These are the three stages of our life. Tatha means similarly. De antra praptihi, at attaining of another body. Dhiraha, the wise, the firm. Tatra, there. Na, not. Muhyati, grieves or deluded. So Lord Krishna says, just as in this body, the embodied, that means the soul, our real self, passes into childhood, youth and old age. Right? The me stayed the same. Even when I was this body was as a baby or as a young girl or a little older woman, and now at this age, very old. Soul is the same. So he says, just as in this body, the embodied passes into childhood, youth and old age, so also does he pass into another body. The wise man does not grieve at it. Okay. So this particular verse is asserting the truth behind the reincarnation theory. So death of this body is not any threat to the soul. Okay, it's just another stage. We don't mourn over the death of our babyhood or our youthhood. If we do, then we are not wise. We are not even intelligent. Let go of the wise. So continuity of existence. At the moment of death, there is no extinction of the individual. Okay. So Dehina, the embodied. Just remember that. Sufi mystic, I have a little quotation from Rumi. Because sometimes we think it's only in the Upanishads or Bhagavad Gita statements like that. Rumi declared, I died out of the stone and I became a plant. I died out of the plant and became an animal. I died out of the animal and became a man. Why then should I fear to die? When did I grow less by dying? I shall die out of man and shall become an angel. But the fact remains that we experience happiness and distress. We forget this reality. We forget who we are, and we just, by the finite things, finite situations, we become sometimes happy and sometimes sorrowful, and we have forgotten our real self. And that's the reason we experience happiness, distress. But Lord Krishna explains this concept beautifully in the next verse. Why do we go through these ups and downs as a human being? Matraha sparshatu kaunteya sheet ushna sukh dukkha agmah painaha anityah tan titikshasva bharat. Matraha sparshaha, contacts of senses with objects. Okay. Tu means but. Kaunteya, Arjuna. Sheet ushna sukh dukh da. Da means a producer. Producer of cold and heat, pleasures and pain. Sheet ushna, cold and heat. Sukh dukh da, pleasure and pain. Okay. Agama painaha, with the beginning and end. Anitya, impermanent. Tan means then. Titikshas, that means tolerate, bear. Titiksha is one of the qualities for a seeker. Titiksha, Bharat. Over here, Lord Krishna is calling Arjuna Bharat. See, earlier we saw Sanjay was calling Dhritarashtra Bharat. The contacts of senses with objects, O son of Kunti, which cause heat and cold, pleasure and pain, have a beginning and an end. They are impermanent. Endure them bravely, O descendant of Bharat. We all know we are in a human body, and this body of ours houses 5 senses, and these in contact with the objects of perception give rise to sensations of happiness and distress. I eat something sweet, I like it. I eat something bitter, I don't like it. Okay? But none of these sensations is permanent. They come and go, like the changing seasons. And according to the season also, in summer we like cool water. In winter we don't. We like warm water. So distress or the happiness is because of the senses. But a person, a wise person, a person of discrimination should practice to tolerate. That's what he says, titiksha. The feelings of happiness and distress without being disturbed by them. Remembering that it's only at the physical level. While let the physical happiness and the distress seep it in and lose your stability. Okay, so this is what he is telling. The object, they remain the same, but if it can give a different experiences, it is evidently clear that it's because of the difference in the mental compositions of the individual. So we got to learn how to control our mind also, learn how to control our emotions also, learn how to know the reality. Because after understanding the finite nature of the changeable objects of the world, remembering that everything in the physical world has a beginning and an end, at no occasion need a wise person despair at things that are or at the things that are not at the physical level. So he says it will be foolish to get ourselves upset at every change noticed. A child does, a wise person does not. It is the attitude of the wise to go through life both in joy and sorrow, success and failure, pain and joy. How? With the constant awareness that even this shall pass away. You have all heard about this. This shall pass away. Good also, bad also. Pain also, and pleasure also. No matter how beautiful a day is, it can turn into a bad day also. But the bad, after bad, the good comes. After good, the bad comes. Just like a night and day. We have seen it all our lifetime. Every night turns into a day and every day turns into a night because it is changeable. That's how the worldly things are. This inconsistencies indicated the term anitya. This is called anitya. When he says, agam painaha anityatan titikshasva bharat. Anitya. But what good comes to a person who bears heat and cold, etc.? Let's look at one more verse. Because I know at this point, you don't want to put this book down. It becomes so interesting. These words are so beautifully said by Lord Krishna. They really open our eyes, open our mind to the reality. Okay? So yamahina vyatyanti ete purusham purushrishab samadukha sukham dhira sa amritatvaye kalpate. Because of this, we need to bear this. Yam means whom, he means surely, na vyatyanti, afflict not. Ete, these purusham, people, men, purush rishab, chief among men. Okay, this man doesn't mean a gender, it just means a human being. This is for the women also. Okay, so sometimes people say, why they said man? No, it's just like you got to write something. And the books were written by men, so they wrote the men. Sometimes the women say, no, it should be women also. So I always tell them that you start writing the books, so you can start writing women. Okay. Sam dukh sukham, same in pleasure and pain. Dhiram, firm, steady. Sa means he, amritatvaye, for immortality, for liberation. Kalpate is fit. O chief among men, that's Arjuna. So Lord Krishna is reminding him that what a great person you are, and you are forgetting that you are great. O chief among men, that firm person whom surely these afflict not, who does not get disturbed by this, to whom pleasure and pain are same, is fit for realizing immortality for the self. Because that is the goal. Amritam, immortality, liberation. So this is a qualification to achieve that success in this life. Calm endurance in both pleasure and pain is necessary condition. to even understand this knowledge. Even right now, if there's no calmness in our mind, it will not make any sense. Person will say, why we are wasting time reading again and again? But when there's a calmness, then we see the beauty in each and every word. We don't want to miss it. We don't want to waste our life complaining against and brooding over and despairing for what has happened around us. We don't want to waste another beautiful human life. See, sometimes we wonder, why do we aspire for happiness? Because this Amritam means actually joy, bliss, happiness. Why? That's our real nature. That is our real nature. We are part of God. God is infinite bliss, infinite anand, infinite joy. So the small joy does not satisfy us. The happiness which we seek, this Amritattvai, is divine. It must be infinite in extent. We are not happy with a small joy. It must be permanent. Because the worldly joys, today they are there, tomorrow they are not there. And they are not infinite. And the third reason is, must be ever fresh. That's why God's name, another name for God is Sat Chit Ananda. So Lord Krishna is saying that if we don't let these worldly changes, the worldly temporariness of world, if we can not let us afflict us, that means if we don't get overwhelmed by it, lose our sight over the reality, then we are fit for this, to become immortal, to know ourselves. Okay, so it's as important. It's like see, this is the reason we need to do the sadhana, so that we don't get disturbed by small things. And that is the reason I said earlier, just remember, even this will pass away. So for this week, I would like you to pay attention. How soon do you get disturbed? Keep an eye. Somebody said something, you lost sight of who you are. Something happened, something did not work out according to you. Did you lose sight of yourself? Write it down. How many times you got disturbed? And how many times you could just say that, hey, even this shall pass away. Okay. So this is like a slowly, we have to keep on thinking like this, so that we are fit to become a good student. Sam dukh sukham dhiram sa amritattvai kalpate. Amritattvai kalpate. So let's end our class over here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaye Purnameva Visheshyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.